So today, not only am I drinking pickle beer, but I'm drinking Tropical Punch pickle beer. So, if you follow our channel, you know that when we fail at something, we drink a pickle beer. And today's failure was especially epic. So today, not only am I drinking pickle beer, but I'm drinking Tropical Punch pickle beer. Now, the purpose of today's story is not to get sympathy, so don't feel bad for me, but if just like one of y'all could benefit from learning the dumb things I did, then we've accomplished our task and today's video served a purpose. So with that, cheers. You can't even taste the tropical. It's just like all pickle. So our story starts a few months back when we hired a contractor to build a garage for us. So we had used an architect to design the garage, and he recommended somebody locally, but he said, don't just go with my recommendation, get a couple of bids, pick what's right for you. So that's what we did. We started reaching out to contractors, probably reached out to 5 or 6, only 2 responded. One was the guy the architect recommended, and one was the guy we ultimately wound up hiring. So we're gonna call this contractor Mark. That's not his real name, but it's really close to his real name, and that will be important later. So Mark came out to look at the site before he submitted his bid so he could get it, as accurate as possible and know exactly what he was dealing with. And so he seemed like a nice guy at the time. He was responsive on email, phone, you could get a hold of him, no problem. And so he's out here, we're talking about, where the garage is gonna go. There were 2 trees that needed to come down. We were talking about that. And while he was here, he was like, oh, you could, why don't you put a bathroom in your garage? Because wouldn't it be nice to, you're working out here in your shop, you don't have to go all the way back in the house to go to the bathroom. I was like, it's a great idea, let's do it. I like this guy, he has good ideas. And that right there, maybe that should have been the first red flag. He was trying to increase the cost of the job before he even started. Or maybe he just had great ideas, I don't know, but I think that could have been the first red flag anyway. So Mark submits his bid. It's a little low. It was $108,000. It was lower than I thought it'd be, but it wasn't like too good to be true. The other contractor's bid was $120. So they were close-ish. We decided to go with Mark because he was super responsive, enthusiastic, and seems like he could get the job done. So Mark wanted a deposit to get started, and his deposit that he wanted was $45,000. That should have been the second red flag right there. It was kind of high after now having talked to some other contractors. But at the time I was like, we're gonna be spending this money anyway. Does it matter now if we spend it now or later? No, let's just pay it. But before we pay him, we need to sign a contract, right? So I asked Mark, I was like, hey, we're ready to pay your deposit, but where's the contract? Because he hadn't sent us one. What he did, he sent us over to a website, House, like they sell, home furnishings and stuff like that. But they also have a portal for contractors to allow their clients to pay them through, invoice them, that sort of thing. And he said, oh, well, when you click accept on House, it turns it into a contract, the estimate. It turns the estimate into a contract. So I clicked accept. No terms and conditions presented themselves like I thought they would. It was just like $18,000 for concrete, $34,000 for carpentry, $20,000 for siding, that sort of stuff. That was the contract. So prices for different pieces of work that he was going to do. So that probably should have been another red flag right there. I mean, who really hires a contractor without a contract? But we wanted the job done. He seems like a nice guy, so we paid him $45,000 via House, and that was probably another red flag right there. Whenever I went to pay him, the payment wouldn't go through because his bank account wasn't linked up to the House system. So if you have a contractor who's doing his business through this online portal, shouldn't he be set up to go and receive payments and do work? So he got his bank account set up, we paid him, went on our way. So he's supposed to start on the job June 1st. The week of June 1st comes and goes, no one shows up. Next week I email him like, hey man, what's the deal, when are you getting started? He's like, oh, we'll be by this week to start tearing down the old garage, because there was a garage here that had to be torn down first. So he comes out later that week, not to tear down the garage, but just with some other guys to kind of take a look at the place again. Oh, I forgot a part before we get too far. So the first time the guy came out to actually do work the day that they were supposed to be doing work anyways, and they just kind of looked at the place, he sat down with me and my wife and told us this story of this other couple that he did some work for, and they ran out of money during their job. So they got really upset, and in the end they were demanding that he buy them furniture and things like that, and he's not interested in making a fortune off of us, but sometimes people run out of money, so that it just happens sometimes. And so keep that in mind, it'll come back later. They finally wind up coming out the week later to tear down the garage. They tear it down in 2 days, haul all the stuff away, good to go. He says they'll be out there the next week to take down the trees that needed to come down. Next week comes and goes, nobody showed up. So I email him like, hey man, nobody showed up, what's the deal? He's like, oh, well, we'll be out there, later. So later that day, he sends me over a new invoice, an invoice that wasn't part of his original estimate. And in that invoice is a charge for $6,000 for taking down 2 trees. And not just that, there was more. So I don't know about y'all, but the last time I had trees taken down, it was more like $500 a tree. So $6,000 for 2 trees, 1 seems like a lot, and 2, we talked about him taking down the trees when he was here the first time to bid on the project. I thought whenever he quoted $4,500 for demolition, that included taking down the trees that he knew had to come down. Well, according to him, trees are extra, so $6,000 for trees seems pretty steep. I'm not sure I'm really good with that. Also in the same invoice, he included $3,700 for installing 2 windows that weren't part of the original plan. So I asked him for, like 2 little narrow windows on the side of the shop, and he quoted me $700 for the windows themselves and $3,000 to install them. Now, I don't know if y'all have ever framed in windows before, but I can tell you it doesn't cost $3,000 to frame in windows whenever you're already building the entire structure from scratch. Maybe more like $300 for some 2x6s, and that's it. I'd also picked out a specific sink that I wanted in the bathroom. It was a $1,000 sink, and he's got here $2,500 for the sink and installation. $1,000 to install a sink when he's already charging me $7,000 to install the bathroom. So $7,000 to install a bathroom, plus a sink that I chose, that's fine, but another $1,000 to install the sink. Now we're up to $8,000 for the bathroom, which, by the way, doesn't include the $500 toilet that he picked out. I mean, I've never seen a $500 toilet, but I'm sure they're very nice. So all in for all those new charges was $12,700, and this is in addition to the original $108,000 estimate he sent me. And so I wasn't sure I was gonna pay it, but then the tree guy showed up the next day to take down the trees. They take them down. He resubmits the invoice to me again, and I wound up paying it because, well, now the trees are down. He already did the work. What could I really do except pay it? So we paid him another $12,700 on top of the $45,000 we'd already paid him. Another week or so goes by, nobody shows up again. I email him like, hey man, what's the next step? He's like, oh, my guys will be out there tomorrow to pick up the tree debris. So his guys come out, he comes out, and he's like, so now there's this foundation where the garage was, and that needs to be removed too. So we're gonna have to remove that. I'm like, okay, fine, like remove it. Like you told me you demolished the old garage for, what was it, $4,500. Take the foundation out too, like I don't care. And the next day he sends me another invoice for $7,900 to remove a 1-car garage foundation. So it's at this point that I think things are like really starting to go wrong. We've already paid an additional 12 grand over the $108,000 estimate. Now he's asking for almost another $8,000. That puts us 20 grand over his original estimate, and it's just not gonna work. Like we can't just keep adding these things on and on and on. So I tell him, hey man, don't remove the foundation, just tie into it, build the garage around it. If things settle funnily and walls crack, like don't worry about it, I won't hold you responsible for it. It's like, no, we can't do the work without removing the foundation. You gotta pay us another $8,000. So at this point I say, this is ridiculous. Tell me exactly how much you plan on charging me, like everything else, like all in, like what we should have had on day 1. Tell me everything you want to charge me for, and let's talk about what stays and what goes. Like, do we really put in the bathroom? Do we let the bathroom go? All that sort of stuff. So he adds everything up, and it comes out to an extra $70,000 on top of the 108, on top of the 20. Like he just doubled the price of the project. And some of that stuff is things that like should have been included in the first place. So concrete beams, those are like the extra like trenches that go around like the perimeter of the garage and kind of through it to add support for the building. He didn't know that when you built a building, it needed beams going around to provide support. He didn't know you couldn't just build a building on top of a driveway. He had no idea. So that's extra. An extra $18,000 for concrete beams, when his original estimate for concrete was surprisingly $18,000. He also wants to prepare the ground with 106 cubic yards of dirt for $6,000. Now, I don't know if y'all know how much a cubic yard of dirt is, but I know I can fit 1 cubic yard in the back of my pickup truck. Did a little research, turns out those big semi trucks that you see with like those side dirt dumping trailers on them, one of those can hold up to 24 cubic yards of dirt. So he wanted to bring in 4.5 semi trucks worth of dirt. Where is that gonna go? Like, was he actually gonna bring in that much dirt, or did he just want to charge me for that much dirt? I have no idea. And don't forget the extra $4,000 for a driveway, because he didn't know when he came out the first time that we wanted a driveway to go with our garage. I've been neglecting my pickle beer. It's time for, oh. All right, so after getting his, updated estimate, I reach out to the contractor that we didn't hire, and I say, hey, here's all the things this guy wants to charge us for. It seems ridiculous. Do you agree? I want his second opinion. And so they responded. They were pretty helpful, and they said, either this guy doesn't know what he's doing and he's in over his head and everything's going to cost more than he originally thought, or he's trying to take you for a ride. And so I kind of decided right then and there that either way, I didn't want him working for me anymore, and so we were going to have to part ways. Okay, so the contractor comes out here for the come to Jesus talk, where we talk about like what stays, what goes, that sort of thing. I've already decided that we want to part ways, and he starts out by explaining there's all these things he didn't know. He didn't know buildings needed beams in them, even though his original quote says it includes footings, whatever. And we tell him that we will pay him for the work he's already done, which was demolishing the garage for $4,500 and taking down the trees for $6,000. But that's all we wanted him to do, and we'd like the rest of our money back. We part ways, and that's it. And immediately, without hesitation, he goes, oh, okay. And I was surprised by that, and maybe I shouldn't have been, but he really quickly reacted and said, okay. He also went into the rest of the story from before. The couple that ran out of money, turns out that the husband was out of town, and the wife kept approving all these changes, and their build went over budget. It went from a $200,000 job to a $370,000 job. So this isn't the first time this guy has done this. This is what he does. He gets you in the door and keeps adding things on, whether or not you agree they should have been included in the original quote or not. He just keeps hitting you for money all the time. So he tells us he's okay with, quitting and getting paid for what he's done, and he's gonna have to go back and figure out what that amount is. And I said, well, don't worry, I took the liberty of figuring it out for you. So demolishing the garage was $4,500. The trees was about $6,000. I'm kind of rounding. But so you've done $10,000 worth of work. We have paid you approximately $57,000, and we would like $47,000 back, please. And he goes, oh, it's not going to be anywhere near that. And I'm like, why? And he's like, oh, well, we haven't been here, but we've been doing other work in the background that you don't know about. And so we kind of get into it for a little bit, and he winds up leaving. I didn't murder him, so there's that. And so I tell him, go back, figure out what you need to figure out, and tell us what you're going to give us back. I'm thinking maybe he'll keep $5,000 or $10,000 he's not entitled to, and maybe I'm okay with that just to get rid of him. But a week goes by, I don't hear from him, so I email him hey, what's the status of our refund? He's like, oh, well, I need to go to this estimator and have him estimate my work that I've done, and I'll get back to you next week. And surprisingly, he does get back to me the next week, and he says, I talked to the estimator, I also talked to my attorney, and you broke the contract, and we're now out of work, and in fact, you owe me money, so let's just call it even. What? So this guy thinks that he's been paid $57,000 to take down a garage and 2 trees, and that's calling it even. I don't think so. I spent a lot of time thinking about what to do next. So what I wound up doing was hiring an attorney to send him an angry letter. In the process of doing that, they did a background check on our friend Mark. Mark had a clean record. And then they noticed on the articles of incorporation for his business, Mark signed under a different name. Turns out he was formerly known as, and I'm not changing this one, this is his real name. His name is Mustafa. But I had no way of knowing that. Without digging into his past, seriously digging in, you don't know who this guy is. Turns out he's probably not the most trustworthy character. He used to have another business, and he shut that one down to make this new one. He also changed his name, almost like he was trying to hide the fact that his other business has been sued by other people before for pretty much the same thing. So I'm not the first person this has happened to. So now we have sent him our angry letter. We gave him a month to respond. By the time you all see this video, that month will have passed. There's only 3 days left right now. We have proof that the letter was delivered to him. We know he got it. And so far, after 3.5 weeks, he's chosen to not respond. So, if he's been in this situation before, maybe he's already in Mexico. I don't know. It's hot out here. I'm so thirsty. Now the pickle beer is warm. So the next step is probably to sue this guy and try and get our money back. I mean, like, even if we're successful, is the money there? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So stay tuned for garage update number 3, where I'm either drinking the Blue Ras pickle beer, which exists and I have in my fridge. I'm saving that one for a really special occasion, or maybe there's a garage build. So actually this video isn't all bad news. So all the other contractor did was take down the 2 trees and demolish the garage, and the state of the build at that point was probably in the last garage update video you saw, where there was a foundation left and that was it. Like, all these forms, this dirt work hadn't been done, this all wasn't here. And that's because we went back and we hired the contractor that our architect recommended. So they've been out here, they've been doing work. We are making progress. It's construction, it's moving a little slower than I would like, but we will get there. The garage is not dead. I mean, my children may have to go to like sandwich artist school, but it's a legitimate profession. Like, they'll be fine. So I hope that wasn't too much of a rant. I hope this video helps somebody somewhere. Like, just pay attention to what your contractor is saying. Like, if the bid doesn't say they're going to take down trees, ask them why it doesn't say they're going to take down trees. Don't just assume because you talked about it and he said they would take them down that they're going to take them down, because they might not. So until next time, I'm just going to finish this tropical delight. See you later.